Chuck Wilder here, and let me tell you about my world-famous guest, Kimberly Dvorak, award-winning national security and border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. Kimberly is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She is also a TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, One American News Network. Her website is thekdreport.com. thekdreport.com. Kimberly, hello, can you hear me, ma'am?
I can hear you just fine. How are you doing out there in California?
I am doing okay, and my intelligence mind and what's the other thing? Horoscope? Yes, might be part of it. I'm thinking I'm gonna put you to a challenge here, okay? What do you say you and I put on our hiking boots, all right? Plenty of water, and we sneak into Guatemala, Honduras, or El Salvador. Which one of those three would you like to pick? If we did this,
well,
they're going to start receiving, if you sneak in, I guess, or even if you're a citizen, you're going to start getting the money, right?
Yeah. Well, if I was to choose those three countries, I'd probably choose Guatemala. I've been to 2 to 3. I have not been to Honduras, but Guatemala is actually a very beautiful country and very jungly, lots of wild animals, wild birds, and very rugged. So that's my choice for sneaking in. I don't know that they would stop anybody sneaking in. If the cartels saw you, they'd probably promptly kidnap you and hold you for ransom. But yeah, there would probably be no capture by law enforcement in Guatemala.
So they have a lot of wild things down there, so I guess I would fit in with wilder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So the border, as we know, is completely out of control. And I think, this weekend I did a lot of research looking into what's going on with drug cartels. And last week we spoke about a turf war taking place inside the United States in Texas. And this week I'm able to report that there is a massive turf war in Tijuana and Mexicali, just across the U.S. border, and that the U.S. is not really doing all that much about it. In fact, Brandon Jett from the National Border Patrol Union came out and gave a statement about what was going on, and the questions were, who's in charge of the border? Is the president in charge? Is Vice President Kamala Harris in charge? Is the U.S. government in charge? And he says flat out, the drug cartels are in charge of the U.S.-Mexico border. That's how dangerous it is along the U.S. southern border, not Iraq, not Afghanistan, not Ukraine, which we've been hearing an awful lot about Ukraine. In fact, on Friday's press briefing, Jen Psaki dedicated an unlimited amount of time here for Ukraine and gave the border security crisis something like 40 words.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if you just recently snuck into California from another state, why in the world would you do that?
Yeah.
You have to realize, that Tijuana is like 1 inch away from San Diego.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I am assuming, and it may happen, but then again, it may not, because we're talking about a different state. And I'm really getting serious on this.
Yeah.
I think if they go down to Juarez and try to sneak into Texas through El Paso,
yeah,
they may have more than border patrol people trying to keep them away.
Yeah, well, essentially, when the cartels are fighting amongst themselves, and last week we discussed the new generation is trying to take on the Sinaloa cartel, which is exactly what they're doing. Well, what they are fighting over are these plazas, or the routes that they traffic the drugs and traffic the human trafficking, the routes that they get these people and illegal drugs into the United States. So they're fighting back and forth and trying to control certain areas that are easily accessible and easy to cross and get themselves into the United States. Now, what's happening in Tijuana is, I talked to some of my sources that I have on the ground there. The new generation cartels, they are using gasoline bombs. They're blowing up certain like district attorney, prosecutors, their cars. They on April 1st, they issued, the new generation drug cartel issues a press statement letting everybody know that yes, we are going to be warring for the northern Baja Peninsula region. We're going after the corrupt government and as well as the other cartels in the region that want to flex their muscle. So they're trying to act like they're a government.
Like your report said, the governor of Baja and the members of his cabinet.
Exactly.
On that April 1st video?
Yes, absolutely. And then on top of that, this weekend we finally got a travel warning from the Department of State warning Americans against traveling down in that region. They've in fact already told their embassy employees that they aren't to travel around to this area whatsoever. It's way too dangerous. And this is an issue where we've got cartels. They're trying to they act like ISIS. If we all remember when ISIS was running into Iraq, and they were issuing press statements. They had really nice graphics departments that were working on all this stuff to make it look like they were a legitimate government. Well, we've got the new generation cartel here doing the exact same thing and killing people just as brutally as ISIS does or did in Iraq a couple of years back.
Let me see if I get it right. Alicio
Nueva.
Okay, Nueva Generation Cartel. CJNG.
Yeah.
And you mentioned ISIS.
Yeah.
You can almost identify ISIS by what they wear.
Yep.
These guys are so proud of themselves. You say they have bulletproof vests,
yep.
and they have the letters CJNG on their chest.
Yeah.
Like we're the bad guys.
Yeah. They're announcing themselves. They know that they are outgunning law enforcement in Baja. They would outgun the United States law enforcement agencies because they are armed to the teeth. A lot of them, there was, earlier this year there was a couple of these, people got arrested, but they were actually buying all of this military gear through eBay. So they're ordering this stuff and they're getting this shipped down to Mexico, and now it looks to me like they're putting themselves on camera and just letting people know, giving them a heads up that they're in town. They're here to take the plaza, and the corrupt government's not going to stop them, and law enforcement in Mexico is not going to stop them, and the other cartel, which is traditionally had that plaza, is the Sinaloa cartel. And so we can expect numbers in the murder and the violence to continue its uptick, because last year Tijuana was the most violent city in the world. And people just think that it's not coming across the border, but over the weekend we were able to get a copy finally of a New Mexico police officer who routine traffic stop in February, asked for the license registration. Clearly the conversation, it's had a body cam on, so we got a bird's eye view what happened, and they clearly didn't have the paperwork. He asked him, he looked in the back, and he said, "Oh, you have a firearm, can we take that out so I don't get hurt?" And sure enough, they got out of the car and they went on to kill this police officer, then went over in execution style and made sure they got him in the head. Broad daylight. In this camp, you can see semi trucks driving by, passenger cars driving by, and it's on a freeway. And in broad daylight, the cartels felt that they could just do something like this, and they did that. We're going to see more and more of this if we don't get control of that southern border. Wow. Yeah.
And the other thing is you have to take into account, they're not shooting rubber bullets.
No.
Okay? I got hooked on, I wish I could tell you the name of the lady, but she goes into these countries, and tries to determine, where are the drugs coming from, or who's doing the thing where they give you, where you just won.
Yeah, I think it's the History Channel has a program where they actually look in the cartels, and they done a 2-season episode just of El Chapo and his whereabouts.
And what I'm bringing up, Kimberly, is that she pointed out, she went and visited like 2 different major cartels, the ones we're talking about, okay? And CJNG was one of them. And it was all she wanted to know is, where are the weapons coming from? And they're coming from the United States of America.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of a misnomer about all the numbers. When law enforcement in Mexico goes to crime scenes and they collect the weapons, the U.S. actually puts serial numbers on. It's law to put them on all of these weapons. But the cartels a lot of times will go and saw off, and sand down the serial numbers. And of course, in other countries around the world that manufacture things, they don't put those serial numbers. So when you see the high numbers of firearms that are in the possession of the cartels, you're looking at the serial numbers. And the U.S. is really the only country that keeps a serial number log. And so law enforcement in this country, they put in the serial number. They know who bought the gun, when they bought it, if it was sold to somebody else. That's how we track it. So that's why the number seems to be so high. So I will give a little bit of, the numbers aren't quite as high as they were, considering they were. They didn't take that in.
If these weren't weapons that are being made in the United States that don't have serial numbers.
Yeah. Well,
I think it was 80% of them. It's all coming out of the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, the ghost guns.
And then they take it down to San Diego and across the border. And they have,
or Arizona. We know Fast and Furious. We know the government tends to, facilitate some of these weapons. And of course, the U.S. we really like to train, the opposition and think that they're going to go down there and come back and be on our side. And oftentimes, like Los Zetas, they get this high-tech training and they know how to, go in and breach a building and take out the bad guys, and then they decide to start their own cartel, and they do just the opposite of what we want them to do, not make their country better, but make it worse. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, we talked about what happened on April 1st, then April 2nd, the CJNG set fire to that Attorney General's office, the official vehicle. They're pretty right out in the open, right?
Yeah, they just, like I said, these people are operating in broad daylight. I mean, we used to see things like this primarily at night. The cartels went out at night. And, the last president in Mexico that actually had some sort of working relationship with the cartels was Vicente Fox. And, for him, he was like, look, you guys, I know you're going to do what you're going to do, but as long as you stay away from tourist areas and you stay away from, the areas where the U.S. government works and the Mexican government operates, we're okay with whatever it is you're going to do. You just stay away from those sites. And, remarkably, it was okay to travel to Mexico. You could go to any tourist destination. You didn't have any fear you were going to get taken out by a cartel and, in a shootout in the middle of the day. And, these are things that it's like slowly but surely eroded away. And now the government in Mexico has ceded so much power to these cartels that they're actually running things. And clearly they're running along the U.S. border, and that the U.S. government just doesn't seem to feel the need to, look and treat these cartels like the terrorists that they absolutely are. This country's looking to go to war with Russia over the whole Ukraine thing. Well, what? Why don't we control what's going on in our southern border? Because that's affecting our communities. Over the weekend, the Sheriff's Association for, all the sheriffs across the country write a letter to the President of the United States saying, look, we are not going to abide by your made-up rules and directives. We're going to arrest these bad guys when we come across them in our neighborhoods. And we're imploring you to please stop. Take the time to go to the border and make sure that border is secure. It was secure 6 months ago, they say. It's no longer secure, and why aren't we doing anything about it? And they also said, in case you need a reminder, we actually came out to Washington, D.C., and we spoke to you 6 weeks ago about the importance of this, because the people in our communities, and these are interior cities across the country, that are witnessing an explosion in violence. And predominantly the violence is around the drugs, and of course where there's drugs, there's drug cartels.
And then I think it was last week that you and I were talking about all the people that live close to the border, you know, who are, you know, really threatened as the bad guys move through their territory.
Yeah.
But you know, I keep saying and I keep hearing, you know, this whole immigration thing. Let's bring over 2 million, 3 million. Let's bring over 5 million. Yeah. And it all has to do with getting more votes for Democrats eventually because, you know, no voter ID and the whole thing. Yeah. But then you wonder, you know, with all the bad guys coming across, and I don't know what the percentage is.
We don't either.
Probably.
We don't know.
Closer, you know. Yeah. But, you know, they're not going to say, oh, boy, I hope I get to register to vote. They're coming over here to say, oh, boy, you know, this is Christmas every day.
It is. And it's a multi-billion-dollar a year business is what we're talking about. So, you know, they're happy to come over and provide Americans with drugs, and they're happy to allow the violence to continue to perpetrate, and just, you know, these inner cities, you know, Chicago, how many people get shot every weekend out there? This is all centering around gangs and drug cartels over trafficking plazas, over what corner they get to sit on to sell the drugs. And, you know, the United States right now is effectively handed control to Mexico drug cartels.
All right. And I mentioned at the very beginning, getting to it now, about the fact that Biden wants to pay migrants to stay home. Now, basically, he's not going to be sending money directly to these people that are now sneaking across the border. He's going to give it to, apparently, businesses in these 3 countries, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador.
Yeah, presumably will go through the governments of those 3 countries, but it's akin to, this is Biden's version. Okay, we have, with COVID under Trump, we had, you know, Operation Warp Speed, and they got, you know, the vaccines out there in pretty quick. Biden's version is how to ruin a country in 100 days. So by doing this, you know, lawmakers have already said, you know, McCarthy, the minority leader in the House, came out and said, look, you know, Americans are going hungry. Over the weekend, I, you know, met with some friends who are running, you know, food banks in this country, and we've got, you know, we always seem to, you know, not take care of our military people. Well, apparently we're really not taking care of our military people still. So, you know, you see these kind of foolish agendas, and, you know, when pressed as to what this program will be, nobody can come up with any idea what it's going to be, although we do know that, you know, Vice President Harris will not be taking care of the border, because her press person on Friday said Kamala's not doing the border. She doesn't want to be associated with the border. Well, we were told that the president had tasked her with organizing and figuring out what's going on the border. So now nobody's in control of the border. And obviously, I keep going back to this drug cartel situation, but they're watching TV. They see what we're doing. And they're actually, you know, growing in strength, because the U.S. this administration continues to do nothing. All they would have to do for the migrants is the Remain in Mexico protocol that President Trump put in place and worked with the 3 governments of Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, and that slowed those caravans within weeks. So you have measures that you could do, yet the Biden administration on day one saw to it that this stuff all went away. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to allow these migrant children to come all the way up and make that dangerous trek and then live in cages with COVID, and they pretty much are staying right on top of one another at overcapacity facilities. It's really, really disturbing.
Well, you know, Vice President Harris, her policy has always been open borders for everybody. Come on in.
Yeah.
You know, whenever she was campaigning and, you know, dropped out first.
Yeah. Well, just I know that we've got to run here quick, but just also one other thing we learned over the weekend, that CBP was told to bring down all of the press releases that they put out with the terrorists that they apprehend crossing illegally into the United States. They were told, presumably, I saw in the White House, that did not look good for our country, and they had to take all of those postings down. So now we're really, as the media here, really going to be in the dark as far as who is in our country. Nobody knows who's in our country anymore, and that's when you take a nation down.
And the mainstream media has to go along with it. You
Yeah.
know, oh yes, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. Excellent reports there. I appreciate it very much, Kimberly. Look forward to our next visit. Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K, and it is thekdreport.com, and you can go there and check it out later and watch this entire thing that we just did, whatever that was. All right. Hey, look forward to speaking with you next week.
Bye-bye.